Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So the intro montage of this episode was the few video clips that I shot at the Atom show. You can see I'm wearing one of the shirts that I picked up there, and I had a really good time. It was a neat time at the show, really cool venue, and a lot of cool cars and cool people. I had some good conversations, and the Mark IV was very well received. And I also got to go for a ride in Russ's beautiful RSP Supra, and he did such a masterful job putting that car together. And it, as far as the experiences that I have had with Mark IV Supras, is by far the nicest driving and operating, and it's just the most enjoyable car to ride in that I've been in to this point in time. But all of that being said, today the job is to start the Haltech install on the Mark IV. So what my goal is to get the Nexus R5, which is this box here, to get it mounted in the Mark IV. So this will involve pulling the dash out, pulling the Pro EFI out of the car, building an adapter plate, so on and so forth. So hopefully I can get all of that done today, and then we can move on to maybe some dash modifications later in the video. With the Pro EFI out of the Mark IV, I can now start drafting out the mounting plate, the adapter plate, that will take the Pro EFI's mounting locations and transfer those over to the Haltech. So I have this sheet of aluminum that was sitting over in the fab room, and I've already started doing some of the drafting. So I drew a center line on this sheet, and I also marked out my distance over to where part of the floor tube structure is in the car for the roll cage, as well as where that portion terminates. So these corners will end up being cut off, and I'll probably do some sort of a curve in the center. But the main important thing right now is to mark out the locations of the three holes, at least for the Pro EFI. And at that point in time, I can drill those and then roughly locate the Haltech where it's going to be and mark out where its four holes are going to be located. So you can see on this ECU, those two holes there, those two holes there. Those are the four mounting holes. And I'll more than likely put some riv nuts in this plate once I get to that point. But for now, let's go ahead, do some drafting, get this squared away, and get it ready to be mocked up in the car. Just like that, a few hours of work, and the Haltech Nexus R5 is now mounted in the Mark IV. So I opted to build just an adapter plate that would mount the new ECU in here, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel and put all new mounts and everything on here. And the one thing I had to be really cognizant of is putting the ECU in a location where we wouldn't have to extend any of the wiring. Now you can see, maybe, let me zoom in, up on the firewall, this clamp right here, that I may end up removing that, so that way we have a little bit more wiggle room and leeway with the connectors, as both the Pro EFI and the Nexus R5, they both use the same actual metal pins that go into the connectors. So this, for Russ, because I'm not doing this wiring, this will be really much easier for him just to be able to depin the Pro EFI connectors, repin the Haltech connectors, and then everything should plug right in and be good to go. So the ECU again is in a nice, easy location to access, even with the dash in when I pull the switch panel, and the new panel moving forward that will house the actual CAN keypad for the Haltech. In either case, if I pull that panel off, then there is nice, easy access to the ECU with the plugs right on the front side, or from our position, the front side. It will be really easy to reach in, disconnect any of those connectors for any reason they would need to be disconnected, and to do any service or repinning or anything along those lines. Now it's time to do the portion of this conversion that I've been dreading. And that is to cut the hole for the new dash. So you may be able to see it on camera, the permanent marker line going around, tracing out the contour of the IC7 dash. So again, this is not something that I've been looking forward to doing, but it's something that is a necessity to make this all happen. So I have my little body saw, or what I affectionately refer to as the buzz saw, and I'll be using this to make this cut. So it doesn't need to be extraordinarily precise, as I have that new bezel piece that can make up any difference that there is, but the closer to the contour that I can actually cut this, the better everything is going to fit, and the less kind of wiggling and jogging around I will need to do. So without further ado, let me get geared up, get my shop light over here, and see if I can do this without destroying the dash. The Mark IV's dash now has a Haltech IC7 bezel installed into it, and currently the flock is drying. So if you guys aren't familiar with flock, it's essentially little suede fibers. You apply an adhesive to whatever surface that you would like to be suede, and then with a little cardboard slide actuator, or applicator rather, you dust the surface with those fibers. So the new dash bezel is all flocked, and the nice thing with it is you can't really apply too much of it, as any excess is just going to fall off. So this is not perfect. The whole dash will need to be refinished at some point in time, but for right now, at least the bezel is in place. It is now all fuzzy, and in a few hours, or I guess tomorrow, once I give this a sufficient amount of time to dry, then we can remove all of the excess flock fibers and see what the IC7 looks like installed into the dash. So if you're interested in flock, and I'll preface this by saying that I by no means am an affiliate or anything like that for them, I just really like their product, I'll leave the link to Flockit's website down in the pinned comment below, as rather than doing upholstery on something like this with all of these complex curves and everything else that would be really a nightmare and end up being a disaster, being able to kind of just dust the suede fibers onto it and have it come out pretty nicely, provided that you do all of your prep work and everything else, all of your due diligence, is a really nice thing. And just like that, the Mark IV's fiberglass dash now sports a Haltech IC7 digital dash. So as far as the molding and everything is concerned, I'm very happy with the way that this came out. The finish of the flock, you can clearly see a dividing line between the new flock and the old flock. So like I said, this whole dash will need to be refinished at some point in time. But I think I'll end up buying one of Flockit's actual pneumatic air-operated applicators, rather, as I think that will provide me with a much more uniform finish across the entire dash. But we won't cross that bridge right now. That'll be something in the future that can be addressed. Right now, I'm just happy that all of this molding work and everything is completed. Now, doing body work and body filler and molding and things like that, it is certainly not in my wheelhouse. It isn't something that I do every day, and I give a huge amount of props to any body shop workers and people who do this type of work on a daily basis and do it to a high level. This was not too bad, considering that there weren't any real symmetrical elements to it or anything like that. You kind of plop the bezel down in place, slap some body filler down, and start sanding and contouring. So in that regard, this is fairly easy. But I could not imagine if I had to do this and keep symmetry and keep everything looking aesthetically correct and everything else. That requires a very special eye and a very keen attention to detail that I do not have. The biggest thing, I guess, would be the patience to do it. But all that being said, Like I said, I'm really happy with the way the molding came out. I got the dash located in a nice level position, at least from the perspective sitting in the driver's seat, and minus the difference in surface finish, I'm very happy with the way that this has, or the finished product of this. So now that the Nexus R5 is installed into the car and the IC7 dash now has a home in the fiberglass dash, I think that will be a good stopping point for right now. Kind of a little bit of a shorter episode and just knocking out something that I really wasn't looking forward to as I was waiting on materials for the SC's new turbo header. Now I have the head flange in, but we won't get to that in this episode as, like I said, we have a good stopping point with getting the dash squared away for the time being. Now, I will have to come up with a new solution for this expanse right here, as this was the initial cutout for all of the rocker switches, and switching over to the CAN keypad, I'll need to make a new panel for that and move some other things around. I might move the indicator lights off of these areas here, move them down into this spot, and I actually don't know how many of the indicator lights will actually need anymore, depending on how I can program the digital dash. But again, those are all things to worry about in the future. I'm just kind of thinking out loud for right now. But why don't I go ahead and stop running my mouth so we can wrap this one up. So thank you guys, as always, for coming along on all these different adventures and journeys with me. It felt good to do some work on the Mark IV again. And like I said, big things happen between getting this dash in the fiberglass dash. That was the big item and the big thing I was not looking forward to. But that's squared away. The ECU is squared away. And at this point in time, it's ready for its wiring conversion. So we have that to look forward to in the future. And like I said, the next order of business, at least for the next episode, we'll be working on the turbo header for the SC. So that'll be next week for you guys, and that will be right now for me. So without me running my mouth anymore, that will be the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way, including my 15th anniversary t-shirts and hoodies, linked in the description below. Be sure to grab those before the end of the year, as they will be no more come 2025. But with all of that being said, that is the end of this one. So I will see you guys in the next episode.